as I prepared the introductory materials for this class, it occurred to me that many of you are coming in without a background in special education. This may be, in fact, the first special education class that you take. So I decided I needed to do a little introduction to special education. For those of you who've already had some special education classes, see this as review, and this is also something that you can save and use when you start preparing for your comprehensive exams. This is part of question set A in your comprehensive exams. So our question is, what is special education? Straight from the federal law, here's how special education is defined. Special education means specially designed instruction at no cost to the parents to meet the unique needs of a child with a disability. And this can include instruction that is in the classroom, instruction at home, instruction in hospitals or institutions and other settings, and it may in fact include instruction in physical education. So what do special education teachers do? This is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Special education teachers work with students who have a wide range of learning, mental, emotional, and physical disabilities. They adapt the general ed lessons. They teach various subjects like reading, writing, math to students with mild and moderate disabilities. In contrast, they also teach basic skills such as literacy and communication techniques, or even motor skills to students with severe disabilities. A way that special education is different today than it was when I first started teaching almost 40 years ago now, is that least restrictive environment, which has always been in the law, is defined and explained differently. So what least restrictive environment says is that to the maximum extent possible, children with disabilities, including children in public or private institutions or other care facilities, are educated with children who are non-disabled. That's always been in the law. And it goes on to say special education classes, separate schooling, or other removal of children with disabilities from the general ed environment occurs only when the nature or severity of the disability is such that education in regular classes, even with supplemental aids and services, cannot be achieved satisfactorily. This is what the law has actually always said. But now the perspective is one of inclusion. So where it used to be that you had to prove that a child had the requisite skills to make it in the general ed classroom, now you have to prove that he doesn't. And so the default mode, where we start, is by putting the kid in a general ed classroom with supports. And then if he does well, we fade those supports. If he doesn't do well, we increase the supports. And then if even with increased supports he's not making it, then we can consider less restrictive settings. Actually, what the law allows, and this is from the Mississippi web page, this page is, what the law allows is a variety of instructional arrangements, the first being in the regular classroom. So we can have the child in the regular classroom with no supplemental aids and services. An example of that would be, for instance, a child who had spina bifida, and this child didn't need any instructional help, but what he did need was catheterization because he had paralysis and was not able to toilet independently. We can have regular classroom with aids and services, and so the regular classroom can include an assistant who goes with the child to the classroom. It can include a special ed teacher in the classroom who helps accommodate the instruction. It can include all types of accommodated or modified instruction. But we can also pull the child out for certain periods of the day, and we call that a resource room. So if the child is in the classroom, is in the general ed classroom more than 40% of the day, but less than 90% of the day, then we can consider that to be a resource room. So he's pulled out for part of the day for specialized instruction, and then when he's in the classroom, he's still getting supplemental aids and services. Full-time special education class means that he is in a special education class for more than 60% of the day. And so that means he may and probably will be in the general ed class for part of the day, but most of the day he's in that special education class. We can have community-based services. We do this a lot in preschool, where the kids are in, say, Head Start, and they are receiving services in that Head Start setting. Kids can actually be in private schools and be receiving services from the special ed in the public schools. We have special schools in some communities where everybody who goes to that school has a disability, and that way we can capitalize on the number of related service people and the specialized instruction that we have at that school. The problem with the special school, of course, is there are not any non-disabled peers for the kids to interact with unless we transport them to activities in another school. Residential school, we don't use those much anymore. Where we're seeing residential schools mostly is for kids who have hearing impairments that are so significant that they require specialized communication systems. We have residential schools for some kids with severe emotional and behavioral disorders where they are a danger to themselves or others. And we have some residential schools for kids with significant cognitive or multiple disabilities where the families can no longer keep them at home. Home hospital settings is for kids that are medically fragile, and typically this is not done for an entire year. It's when the child is in medical crisis. So for instance, if we have a kid with sickle cell anemia, where they have periods of time where they have episodes, and during those episodes they're in a tremendous amount of pain, and so we have to keep them at home or in the hospital until that episode passes. So what are the disabilities that are covered in the federal law? We can break them down into what we call high incidence disabilities and low incidence disabilities. The high incidence disabilities are disabilities where there are a lot of them, and so what we have is the four major high incidence disabilities are specific learning disability, emotional disability, intellectual disability, and speech and language disability. The biggest group is specific learning disability. Just under half of all the kids receiving special ed services have a specific learning disability. The other three are all sitting at about 1%. Two disabilities that we're seeing the numbers increase dramatically, but they're not on this high incidence list yet, are autism and attention deficit disorder. Your Master of Education degree is in mild disabilities, and so it emphasizes the disabilities on this high incidence list: specific learning disability, emotional disability, the mild intellectual disability, and the speech and language disability. The low incidence disabilities are not there necessarily because of severity, but because of rarity. And so these are the ones where we don't have as many children. And in fact, many school districts don't even have enough of any of these groups to have a separate class, even though it might seem necessary. So we have autism, deaf, blind, developmentally delayed. That's preschool. So that's ages 3 up to age 8 is developmental delay. Hearing impairment, multiple disabilities, orthopedic impairment, which does include cerebral palsy, other health impairment, which includes attention deficit disorder, which is a mild disability, but also includes epilepsy. It also includes cancer and sickle cell anemia, asthma, all AIDS, all kinds of different conditions under there. Traumatic brain injury, visually impaired, and intellectual disability, in this case, significant cognitive impairment. So, in Mississippi, the ones that have 2 stars, so autism, deaf, blind, multiple disabilities, epilepsy, traumatic brain injury, and significant cognitive impairment, those are ones that we're going to talk about in this class. That's what we'll be emphasizing. And these are the categories that your add-on licensure, if you choose to have get one in special ed, will prepare you to teach. And this class is required for your Master of Education because these kids are in inclusive settings, but it also is required as part of the add-on licensure. And so in this class, this is the only class in your major where we emphasize the areas that have the 2 stars. All the rest of the classes in your major, if you're getting the Master's in Special Education, are going to emphasize the areas with 1 star. Okay, so then we have, in addition to those 13 categories, we also have what are called related services. So related services means transportation and other developmental, corrective, and supportive services that are required for a child to benefit from special ed. So it includes speech and language, audiology, psychological services, physical and occupational therapy, recreation, and so on. One of the weird little quirks in the law is that speech and language can either be a disability category or it can be a related service. So if the only problem a child has is communication, then that will be his disability label. But if a child has another disability, like for instance a learning disability or a cognitive disability, and that's actually what's considered to be the source of his school problems, then speech and language is just a supplemental or related service to allow him to benefit from education. In special education, we use a team approach, and so special educators, related service personnel, general ed teachers, paraprofessionals, and parents work together to assess and evaluate a child, plan for that child's education, implement the instruction, and make instructional decisions. And to do this, we use what's called an IEP. And the IEP is an individualized education plan. It's updated every year. It's developed when the child is first declared eligible. It's developed by that team of people. We look at the child's present level of performance. We decide what accommodations and modifications he needs for his school. We set annual goals. We consider things like Braille or behavior plans or communication systems. We talk about transition and adult living, extended school year, graduation options. All of this is put into a document, and this document is a legal document. And so the special educators and the general educators are expected to work together to implement this document as it is written. So that's all there is to special ed. That's all there is to it. Why do you need a 33-hour degree, right? So we move on.